Hi guys, welcome to the Productive Wellbeing Show. It's episode 60 and I am so excited to be joined today by the amazing Garry K. Now, Garry is the social media guy. He is an international speaker, an award-winning optician, a serial entrepreneur, a two-time author, and the MD of Loving Social Media. He is also a proud father of 4. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about life in lockdown and his spiritual awakening. So, as always, as you're joining us, please let us know where you're joining us from. Say hi, leave a comment, tell us what the weather's like. And if you've got any questions for Garry as this conversation goes on, leave them in the comment box. And if you're joining from the replay, please say replay and tell us, because Garry, we've got people joining from Canada, from America, from all over the world on the replay. So this isn't just right here, right now. This is a global show. So welcome to the
Too
show.
exciting. I'm absolutely. I've got this thing. Maybe it's a superstition that I always start a live broadcast with my clapperboard. Thank you for that awesome
Thank
introduction.
you. Thank you. So I'm just checking that we are live on Facebook and LinkedIn. I can see Karima is with us on LinkedIn. Hi, Karima. So awesome to have you. And okay, we are good to go. Garry,
Yes.
before we go into this spiritual awakening, just give us a bit of background as to who you are and what sort of found you here. Hi, Sam. We've got Sam Haloum. I think you might know him from networking. But
Okay.
anyway,
Thanks for
so
joining, Sam.
give us a bit of the
It's
background.
quite weird to be on this side of the. I'm used to interviewing others, so this is an experience for me. When you rolled off all those things I've done, I've packed a lot of things into my life. Um, it could be to do with being diagnosed with MS about 25 years ago. And I just suddenly thought, wow, I don't know how tomorrow will be. So I was always in a rush. And that really, anybody that knows me knows I'm constantly whizzing around. All my empty time, I use it in a good and positive way. But then life is about balance. So recently, my wife qualified as a yoga teacher, so I started to experience being present. And I've always been a spiritual person. So having that balance is really important. People look at me and think, "Wow, all these things you do, Garry." But really, it's too extreme sometimes. Packing all those things into 24 hours is quite something. And then I had this spiritual awakening, if you like. The last 3 months have been intense. I've opened 6 businesses. I've run alongside the business I already run. And I just paused for a second to think, well, was it a real waste of my energy for 3 months? Did I just go into my comfort zone and everybody reacted to COVID differently? And my comfort zone was open businesses, get really, really busy. And I think that I've come to a realization actually it's not healthy to work that hard and that be that focused. So I guess that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah. So, guys, if you're resonating with anything that Garry says, give us some emojis and some thumbs up so that we know, because otherwise, as always, it's going to be a really boring one-way conversation. This isn't the TV; we can actually interact.
I always
And
say,
Garry and I love the virtual high fives.
this might as well be a recording if we're not getting that interaction with you all. So that please ask any questions. I'm 46 years old. I have children. I've managed to tick the box on traveling the world. I've opened so many businesses. I have business partners, and that's great. Like I go back to just that whole balance of life is massively important because you've had a similar experience, Abigail. Your fans will know your story. I got to find your story up to date. Very, very
Yeah.
powerful.
Before we go into this spiritual awakening, then let's really talk about the elephant in the room. How have you handled corona, businesses, relationship, 4 children, in a house, hopefully you have a garden. What sort of, how have you sort of boundaried it and balanced it? And thank goodness your wife does the yoga. So do you meditate? Let's really talk about all those sorts of things.
Well, there's a lot of questions there. I think over the first couple of weeks was a panic situation. A panic that I'd lost a lot of clients because they put me on hold. The first thing that gets put on hold are marketing, and that's my core business, the marketing. I still own 20% of an optician's, but then that was shut too. So real panic set in. And then whenever I'm anxious, my fallback position is work hard. So I really, in this office of mine, I sat here for 14 hours a day building businesses, because I was thinking, look, I've built all these businesses for others. I've got them web traffic, I've got them social media, I've got them attention. I need to start doing this for myself. And on Easter Sunday, I just thought, right, I'm going to do a worldwide webinar, just for fun. 50,000 people watched it. It was amazing. And then some doors opened, as the whole marketing thing works, that you need visibility before people trust you. So yeah, I've done the webinar. My keynote speaker at the end was a lovely lady called Kate Strong. She's attempting a world record right now as we speak, but she's the gold medalist. She's the world champion triathlon. And I said to her, how much do you charge for speaking? She said to me, up to £10,000. I said, wow, who's your agent? She said to me, somebody, an agent. And she said, and I said, what's your loyalty to that person? She said, very much so, but I'm not in a contract to have two people. That's fine. I said, I'll be your agent. She said, she smiled and she thought about it. And then I Googled, was there a web address? What could I do? Because you need a catchy name. And I registered bookamotivationalspeaker.com. From there, Kate then said, look, how about we do this together? So we now have an up and running, amazing website called bookamotivationalspeaker.com. Hopefully, Abigail, you'll be one of my speakers on there too. If you're watching this, we welcome all kinds of speakers. I think the underrepresented speakers that have something really powerful to say. That reminds me of a story I may share. I got to listen to the world's first blind person to climb Everest, to drive a Formula One car. This guy was amazing. Forgive me, I don't remember his name, but the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. He was such a powerful speaker. And I had to speak to him afterwards. That was just amazing. You've changed my life with the positivity you've just spoken about. So I got to hear from him again about 5 years later. And do you know, the second time I heard him, it was so rehearsed. It was rehearsed to death. And it was poor. It didn't move me emotionally whatsoever. And that's the thing. That was a passion of mine. I thought, if I can find people that have never really spoken before and really speak from the heart, the thing with polished speaking, you can tell it lacks that tiny bit of authenticity. And that was our idea. So then it span out to something else. Kate recommended me to somebody else. And then we started an online virtual for lonely people that can phone this virtual line. It's called Vert for You. And then from there, I looked at my clients, and the ones that are doing the best are selling vegan products. So I thought, hey, how about I open a vegan-only chocolate company, and that's called yummychocolate.com, and that's doing really well as well. And the list goes on. I've done an online.
Oh, I told you guys that Garry is a serial entrepreneur. So sorry, I was looking away because they were saying there was an echo, but I think we fixed the echo now. So that's all good. I love that. Yeah, you have been so prolific during lockdown. So how has it been managing your time and managing your family? How have you and your wife been able to do that?
I went into my comfort zone. My wife, my lovely wife, who organizes everything in the house, had she had her own issues. She wasn't sleeping very well. She had anxiety. And I went into my world, she went into her world. And because we were in a little bubble, all I could tell was other people were reacting in their own little way. And it wasn't really until the other day that I thought, this is insane, Garry. You're just a busy fool, doing lots of different things to stop the actual reality of what's happening. I should have been with my children, teaching my children to ride the bike, or enjoying it. So nothing comes out stronger than the realization of balance. It wasn't Kobe Bryant. It was one of the basketball, Jordan, I think, Michael Jordan. He says that when he got on the basketball court, he couldn't hear the crowd. He couldn't see his players. All he saw was the net. And that incredible focus means that you forget everything else. You don't see what's going on. And I can really focus in on something. And that's what happened. It went into overdrive. So I call it my COVID spiritual awakening. I will never do that again. And it was really fun and it was great. But if I've learned a lesson of anything, I've stopped the virtual line. I handed in my notice to the partners. I've settled things down again, and I hope to go back to normal of just being a regular entrepreneur rather than losing my mind. I'm not a dragon on Dragon's Den or something.
Thank you so much for sharing this, and please let us know in the comments if what Garry has very vulnerably shared with us, if this resonates with you, if this has been like the reaction that any of you have found yourself doing as a result of these unprecedented times, because Garry like really shared his way of dealing with adversity, and all of us have done it in a different way. And I started the show and it was running 5 days a week. So we did 19 episodes, 5 days a week. And then Easter weekend came. And so I got 4 days off. And suddenly I was able to realize that I'd been keeping myself really busy and burning myself out. And there's lots of other people in the public space who've also been doing all sorts of different things. And our health is our absolute wealth, 100%. And yeah, so Sam's saying that he's been there. It's crazy how you become the observer of yourself in that moment. Yeah, it's like God has taken over. It truly is. And you realize that your ego writes checks your body can't cash, to quote a movie. If any of you know what movie that's from, put it in the comments. Don't say, Garry. But yeah, so your spiritual awakening then really was that you had been in your comfort zone, focusing on being busy and avoiding everything. So once you realized,
the weird thing is, it's most people's uncomfort zone. Starting a business is scary. Coming out of your comfort zone is scary, and trying new things and not being afraid of being criticized, or like, I seem immune to these things, but it's a bit extreme to do all the things that we did. And thank you for being vulnerable and saying the things that you did. I think every single person is going to have a story of how I think the studies have shown 60% of people in COVID have had disruption in sleep. And sleep for me, I know that if you need to, this is a fact, that if you need to be detailed on a project and you don't have enough sleep, how on earth can you do that project properly? So
you're preaching to the converted. This is why we have the 888. The sleep pillar is non-negotiable. You will sleep when you're dead if you don't sleep while you're alive. Because when you don't have enough sleep, your emotion is high, your intelligence is low. It's very hard to make good decisions. And also, guys, let us know in the comments if you've been having sleep challenges over the last few weeks, because I know I certainly have. And I'm not a person that ever has their sleep interrupted by anything. When I go to sleep, I command myself to sleep and to go into the deepest, most regenerative sleep, because I'm all about the incantations and the commands and everything, having sort of started my personal development journey through our mutual friend, Tony Robbins. And it is so important that we set these intentions of what we want. But yeah, the disrupted sleep and the waking up and the being sort of like, what's going on? And people are saying,
we
yeah.
spoke on the phone earlier this morning about being in a state of vulnerability. And it's something that I've certainly studied, being vulnerable, because when my father passed away 5 years ago, somebody, a very wise lady, she said, you know, you're in a vulnerable state. And I said, no, I'm not, I'm fine. And then Dad passed away, and my sister got some grief therapy, and everyone said, look, Garry, you should do this. Like, you had a tricky relationship with your dad. And I was like, no, I'm okay. And I would easily say, with my hand on my heart, that I made the worst decisions through that next year, because I rely on my instinct. And because I was vulnerable, instinct didn't say, Garry, this isn't the right move. Even though integrity was in place, because I live by integrity, telling the truth, being on time, bad decisions, and they were off. And I think that we're all in a vulnerable state because of the unknown. When COVID happened, it could have been the end of the world. Life as we know it, it's all tricky. So I don't think one person on the earth thought we were all in a vulnerable state. And we know that when we're in a vulnerable state, do not make those big decisions. I wish I'd just taken a step back. Now, I laughed at my entrepreneur friends that started to paint the house and do the gardening, and they stood back and they just reflected. That was the right thing to do. Not so much what I did, go into work mode and build businesses and do different things like that. So I regret not stepping back, having a reflective time. Let's do some yoga, let's do some meditation, let's consolidate what's going on.
I think it's amazing. And for me personally, life is a journey. We don't know what we don't know until we've done what we've done. And then if we had a degree in the benefit of hindsight, we'd all be, you know, life would be amazing, perfect, plain sailing. But that's not what it's about. I think for me, I'm grateful for every time I made big decisions that didn't necessarily work out how I wanted them to. I'm grateful for the lessons that I learned, the evolution that I had, and the person that I became. So how many weeks do you think of this habit of the grind did you do before your soul woke you up and said, Garry, enough?
I would say I think we've been in lockdown. How long have we been?
I think we're in about week 14 now.
I would say last week that I had that realization. Wow. And it smacked me right between the eyes. And there's not many moments that hit you that fast. I think it might have been our Prime Minister saying that lockdown's over and things are coming to an end, and that subconsciously said, hey, Garry, get off this crazy venture that you're on. And it would be a great book, I'm sure, and it would be fantastic, and people will say, well, how did you set up all those businesses? But it wasn't doing my health any good, or my relationship with my children, or my relationship with my wife. They just saw Daddy, they thought it was normal. Daddy goes in the morning at 6 a.m. into his office and he returns at 9. That was normal. Quickly, a bite to eat, maybe.
I think so many people went into this. They went one of two ways. Now, Andy Parks is saying we're 93 days in. People went one of two ways. They went Netflix and chill, or they went absolutely head down, let's pivot. And I yeah, like I said, I did that for the first few weeks, and then remembered and realized that life is about flow, and it's about power, and it's about working from our power. It's not from force. It's not from having to do more things, having to make more calls. It's about who we're being and this alignment. And we've had so many amazing conversations here over the last sort of 60 or so episodes with people sharing all sorts of their tips and tricks. And it's great that you're adding to the mix here as well, because I think for the regulars who have watched the show and the new people who are coming on, you're starting to see that perfect doesn't exist. You practice in public what you become better at. I just did a post on Instagram about, like, we're not training for the Olympics here. This isn't about us like getting a gold medal and perfecting it it's about
would you agree to be an overachiever, you need to sacrifice somewhere else? I just don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But overachievers, so Henry Ford, not Henry Ford, Napoleon Hill. Big fan of Napoleon Hill. He studied overachievers for 25 years of his life. And they bounce back into a positive state very quickly. They're very critical on themselves. He put 14 characteristics of a high achiever. But there's not many high achievers I've seen that don't sacrifice somewhere else, because just you're laser focused. And I'm certainly encouraged that with this statistic that most people in the UK that are entrepreneurs become millionaires at 50. And the reason for that is because they're a bit wiser. I'm lots of millionaires before and after, but I'm really encouraged. I always love that statistic because it says that the wisdom's going to get you there, not the graph, not the hustle. Gary V says, of course you need the hustle at the beginning, but then it's the smart, to use a soccer analogy, a football analogy, as the players get older, they use their brains more. And I think that's important. Step back, have a look, make sure you're not making errors, check yourself. And I do all the usual things. I've got a coach, I've got an accountability partner, I'm part of a networking group, I've got a good circle of friends. So I had all those things in place, and I still just was single-minded in what I was doing.
So what was the actual, the kick, the wake up, the slap, the whatever you want to call it? What was the actual thing? I'm just fascinated because I've asked many people, and when we really get down to it, it's not something glamorous. A guy told me a cow pooed in his ear, which is why he started the business he started. What was your kind of unglamorous, Garry, rein it in?
Yeah, it was becoming really obvious that things, all the plates, because
what was the one specific thing?
Yeah.
Was it an email? Was it a missed deadline?
As the business grows in startup, it needs different skills to when you start making money, right? And as the plates became more and more difficult to control, the odd plates started dropping. And the Vert for Real project, the virtual phone lines, I became like half a day wasn't enough for me to stay on top of things. And then the business partners in that were like, Garry, like, we need you more. And it was a position where I looked around and I saw that I'd be making errors, silly little errors, and it was just going to get, I saw the future was going to get worse.
What was the pivotal thing?
The fact that the Vert for Real people got me in a meeting and they said, look, Garry, we love you. You're really, really good at your job, but you're going to need to spend more time on this project. And I saw credibility flying out the window. I saw I have to drop something else. And then it was just like, bang, it just hit me, like, not physically, it just, wow. So then I agreed to hand in my notice to the Vert for Real thing. And then this huge relief just went from me. I just thought it was wonderful. I felt I'm free to free of that. And I put myself under this massive pressure to be outstanding at every single point, every single touch point. And I couldn't do it. I'm only a human being. I can't do all these things.
We're all human, and the universe will always give you a message. The first message will be like a feather touch. The second message will be, a conversation. The third message will be a punch in the face. The fourth message will be whatever it will be. And if we don't listen, and this is my own story, I didn't listen. So my wake up call was a huge one. But it's good that you were able to learn that lesson then. And this comes down to what we were talking about this morning when we were speaking, that we've all got this 24 hours, and how we slice that pie is creating the results and the life we get. And you said a point about the successful people and what do they think. Now, there are many successful happy people, there are many successful unhappy people, there are many unsuccessful unhappy people, there are many unsuccessful happy people. It doesn't really seem to matter about the success or not the success. It matters more about what you think of yourself and who you are being along the way, along the journey. And I truly believe that we can't discover that unless we get in the game, we dive in the pool, we swim imperfectly, we give things a go. But they do say with the businesses, and this is probably something that you will have heard doing more, what is it? Start fast, or start fast, get out fast. There's a phrase that they always use. If it's not working,
if it's not working, get out fast.
Get out fast.
Realize, because that's a success in itself. I could have burnt myself out, had the heart attack, like had the nervous breakdown, and that would have been terrible. I'm far from that. I've realized, but I feel so silly. I feel quite ridiculous, actually. I feel, I always say I'm imperfect, but I feel even more imperfect now. I've built something I'm proud of, but I feel so
imagine, I'm like, oh, I really wish we were at an event, you guys all watching were a live audience, and we could say to you right now, raise your hand if you've ever done something that you feel a bit foolish about, but equally you are proud of yourself for actually standing up for yourself. So, because we can't do raise your hand because you're all watching this virtually.
The hairs on the back of my neck have just started. And can I give you feedback live on air?
Yeah.
You're so authentic, Abigail. Like, you can see, like, I'm no behavioralist, but like when you talk with such passion and authenticity. It's so lovely. I will be a big fan of the show. I'll be watching. I don't know if your fans agree, but you wear your heart on your sleeve, and it's really wonderful to watch someone as authentic as you and just speaking. And the saying, it takes one to know one. There's a real powerful, it's so powerful. People don't realize, if you're selfish, you cannot recognize kindness. If you are kind, you recognize kindness. I see in you, because I've got it myself, I see in you kindness and authenticity and hard work. But if I didn't have that, I wouldn't see it. So I want to pay you a big compliment to
Thank you.
all your fans out there. Wow, wonderful is Abigail. We've only virtually met today, so lovely.
Amazing, thank you. Well, the community that we're building, we're not fans, but yeah, I get where you're coming from. But that is an interesting point that Garry puts, and it's a spiritual point to be aware of. We are all mirrors for each other. So throughout life, if you go out there and you see somebody and you see something in them that you don't like, they are just reflecting back what you are. Now, before you get upset and start thinking, well, but I'm not like them, I'm la la la, you may have been like that in the past. You may be like that 1 out of 10. You may still be like that sometimes. So we are all degrees of what we want and what we don't want. So they call it your shadow side. You don't necessarily like it, but you see in others what's actually in you. So if somebody ever pays you a compliment and says, I see this, I feel this, it's because it's in them. And if they don't believe that, it's just a matter of turning up the volume on the story you want to be telling yourself in your head, and turning down the volume on the story you're finished telling yourself. And this is what the journey, the evolution is all about. 2020 is fundamentally the year of like the washing machine on spin wash, and we're all going to get out of that machine at the end of 2020, and some people are going to have shrunk, and some people are going to be nice and sparkly and bright and clean, and some people are going to be walking around a bit dizzy, and some people unfortunately are not going to have made it. That is actually, the thing about life, is that we're born, we live, we die. But fundamentally, the underlying is what we did with the time that we were here. And me almost having my near-death experience and you having your diagnosis helps us to have this solid foundation of, well, let's just max it out. Whatever we're here to do, we're
The
here.
irony is, one of the books I wrote was about happiness, being grateful and all the usual things of being happy, and that just, I was still happy. I just didn't. I was ignorantly happy, and that's just it's a tricky one, because what really defines happiness is that last breath. How do you feel when you put your head down at night? And there's lots of marriages and relationships you are happy, but you don't realize that actually you're not. There's so much more, and that's something that really I need to explore a little bit more. That I need to check on myself. Am I really happy? Because I think it was a guy called Zig Ziglar.
Mm.
Success isn't coming home late at night and never seeing your children.
Mm.
And that's, I think you need to define what success is to each and every person. So success for me is that I am not overweight. I don't like the fact that I put half a stone on over COVID. I don't like, so that's certainly good. So it's health, it's spirituality, that I'm connected with other human beings. I can make that connection with people. The relationship I have with my wife, with my children, that I am physically and mentally in a good place, and I'm earning enough money to pay all the bills and maybe even have an abundance of it. But you don't need an abundance of anything, really. The lesson I've learned is it's all about balance.
I cannot believe, guys, that Garry has just dropped this in at 30 minutes into our conversation, because this what is happiness could continue on. And we didn't plan this, believe me, but I want to tell you that Garry and I are working together on Friday. Garry is running an event and will be interviewing me, and perhaps we can continue this conversation about happiness.
You will be on the other foot.
But the event is free. We will leave a link to it in the comments, and we would love you to join us. And it's all different speakers throughout Friday afternoon. So that's the 3rd of July for those of you watching this on the replay. And Andy Parks, I did see your message there. And I just want to go back before we end our chat today and say, yes, Pete Crutchley, you guessed right. That quote was from Top Gun, one of my all-time favorite movies. But wow, Garry, thank you.
Wow, I've really enjoyed. I go to schools, I do talks. This is another string to my bow. I speak to the young people and I say, do what you're passionate about. And they say, but sir, how will we know if we're passionate, if we're in the right place? I say, well, time will go really slowly if not. That's the kind of indicator. This 33 minutes has gone by. I blinked and it's over. So for me, this is a passion, like sharing knowledge. I love even interviewing people. So I'm very much looking forward to interviewing you. Let's see. How did we do? How was that? How was I to be interviewed?
Let's see how it goes on Friday. Yeah, you were amazing. Thank you so much for vulnerably sharing your story, your wake up, your awakening. The guys watching today, and I'm sure on the replay, were all resonating with your experience, because yeah, these unprecedented times are crazy for everybody. But thank you so much for those of you who are with us live and for all of your interaction. Thank you, Garry, for your time. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and keep washing your hands.
Lovely. Thank you very much for having me on the show.